right, welcome to the February 20th Board of Supervisors meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will begin with public comment for non-agenda items. As a reminder, the rules for conduct of public meetings established by Resolution 2001-08. Time allocated for each individual making a comment shall be 3 minutes unless otherwise set by the presiding officer. Additional public comment may be granted at the discretion of the presiding officer at the conclusion of the meeting. Any public comment? Come on up. Yep, up here, please.
Hi, my name's Brian Denola, and I'm a resident of the Hopewell community within the township. And I wanted to come here tonight seeking resolution for some issues that I'm having with refuse collection. Specifically, there's been a change in policy as to overage amount of trash collection. And what I mean by that is over the past almost 2 years that I've lived within the community, I've never had an issue with non-collection of refuse. And then starting 2 weeks ago, the new trash company that has been contracted has begun refusing to collect trash beyond the limit that has existed, I suspect, for a long time of the 96 gallons, which has not been the policy since I've lived here, and I suspect previous to that, which is now creating an undue burden for me to have to store trash in my home, because I don't feel that this 96 gallons each and every week is a sufficient amount to be allowed to dispose of. And you know, during the summer months, if this continues, now I'm going to have to store trash inside of a garage where it gets hot and smells, and it just seems unreasonable that if I'm to have guests and create excess refuse, or to have any sort of, you know, scenario where I could create more than this 96 gallons, I'm now being forced to effectively store my trash until such time that I can try and wither it down to dispose of all of it, or hope on bulk day that they pick this up once a month. So my understanding is that the township pays for tipping fees, and has stated on their website they want to try and now strictly enforce these, reduce the tipping fees, but this has not been the practice for a very long time. So I'm requesting that this policy be reversed back to the previous behavior.
How, I'm thinking out loud here, how long have you lived in the township?
Almost 2 years.
Okay, because I was going to say, we had Republic 3 or 5 years ago. And then we switched over to Belinsky.
A.J. Blazinski.
And then we're now back to Republic. Is that, no.
No,
You
have Republic.
Yep.
We just switched to AJ. AJ did not have this behavior until 2 weeks ago. So like Christmas time, when everybody had plenty of trash outside, no problem picking up 2 96-gallon containers from my home. But now all of a sudden this month it's become an issue.
And I think I'm going to hit Luke with it, so I don't know if you.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
I think Luke wrote the.
Well, there's, first of all, thank you for coming. I appreciate you bringing this to the board's attention. You and I had a conversation earlier this week, and because there are 2 places where this, this limit is memorialized. One is the hauler contract. So when we went to bid with the, after the end of the Republic Services 5-year contract, we bid out that the hauler would go to each of our stops and once a week collect no more than 3 35-gallon containers. So that's one place where this is memorialized. A second place this is memorialized is in our township code and in our marketing materials, like on our website and what we distribute to the community. So while I'm sympathetic to the concern the resident raises, it's not a wish I can grant. This is a these are documents that the board, either in ordinance form or in contract form, adopted. So that's kind of how we got here. A little bit more background. The 335 was a condition of Republic Services contract as well. And, you know, to the extent that Republic Services wasn't diligent about enforcing that limit, that would not have generated a complaint to our office. No one complains that they got extra service for free. And therefore, it's entirely plausible that at the street level, the experience that residents are having is this used to be okay and now it's not. It's not a public policy change, it's a hauler who is more versus less inclined to enforce the limit in our contract. So I will stop there by way of background. I don't know what you want to have as a conversation for next steps.
And I guess if someone were to go over that threshold with them, I'm just thinking out loud here, what's the alternative? Is the alternative pay the hauler directly more money, pay as an additional pickup? Is there a way around it or no?
Right. Well, you know, when we were having this conversation this summer, we thought that the best possible solution would be to purchase trash carts for township use. And in that way, we wouldn't have to worry about variations between individual homeowner carts. So let's just use as an example, the standard recycle cart we have is 65 gallons. If a resident had gone to a hardware store and bought two 65-gallon carts, the correct answer from the hauler is to empty 1.5 carts. That's very difficult. Current resident has two 96-gallon containers, and so it's quite clear that it's over limit. But I guess as a long-term policy solution, I would like to see a standardized container throughout the township, so that more or less the instruction to residents is if it fits in the container, it's an acceptable volume.
Is the issue here that he's not, they didn't, because it's two 95 containers, right? They're not emptying any of it, or they're just emptying one of the two?
They will only accept one large container, which is about 96 gallons, which is close to the 105-gallon limit. And this is less than what a family of 4 produces on, you know, a week of having refuse. And specifically, this doesn't affect recycling. It's only the refuse, which is the non-recyclable garbage.
So let me pose you know, we kind of started this at the public policy level. You know, what is an appropriate amount of service we want to provide as a base to the residents in the community? If I could drill down a little deeper to an administrative level, I would point out that the billing for trash and recycle service is collected through the real estate taxes. It comes with your bill that would also have the fire services and the general millage. It is possible for a single parcel to be billed for more than one stop. So, for example, if you had a home and that home had a carriage house or an in-law suite, you may opt to pay double for trash and recycling because more people live at that. So there is a mechanism, albeit not a free mechanism, by which we could direct the hauler to pick up more at an individual stop.
And then what are we on, what's our term on this contract?
It is 3 years with an option to extend for 2 additional years. And there's always, well, I'm sure that Kristen, who's joining us remotely, will keep me from stepping out of line. I'm sure there's some level of tweaking we can do to a contract without needing to rebid it entirely.
Yeah, but changing it to allow them and to require them to collect more from every household is a material change to the contract, and that would require rebidding, in my opinion. If you were going to do it township-wide, that every resident who gets trash service is now allowed to have more trash, and you're going to mandate a different term of the contract to require the hauler to collect more from everybody, that's not what was bid. So that's a completely different contract, and that you might have gotten different prices from the different bidders if they all had to collect more trash. So I do have a concern about that.
in this
I
particular...
don't have a concern if one particular homeowner wants to pay for, and I was a little bit confused, Luke. Are you saying that there is a separate fee charged for the trash hauling service separate and apart from the real estate tax, or it's tied into the real estate tax?
It's billed with the real estate tax, but it's, you envision it not as a levy on the value. It's a 1 or a 0. Does this parcel have this service? Or in this case, a 1, a 0, or a 2.
So there's a fee that you charge per residence that receives the service.
Yes, and it's not
Okay,
assessed
so
on
that would be
vacant
a
lots.
board decision as to whether or not they would allow another fee to be charged, because then, we pay the hauler based on the number of residences. In effect, that would be like 2 residences at one that are paying the fee, so they would get more money.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like obviously it's not as easy as just saying, wave a wand, but I think the best thing to do is, we're a supervisor light anyway, is to talk to the hauler and see if they come across this with, have you reached out to them yet or no?
So I've only spoken to the people that actually collect the trash, and then my wife did call there, and she spoke to somebody that basically pointed me to the township, at which point I spoke to Luke, and here I am.
Because I'm not wondering if there's not a way to talk to the hauler about an isolated instance, and if that customer could in turn pay, and the board could set the precedence if they choose to or not. Again, we're one light, but if you could create a resident and a half, so to speak, and say this, two for the, cans for this one household, and maybe they would be considerate of that. I don't know.
So I'm not the only person to experience this issue, only the first person to
Oh,
actually.
I have issues too. I have 5, and I stand on my deck and squash it down. And I think to myself, how are they picking this thing up because it weighs 800 pounds? So
Do you live within the township?
I do.
So
I-
do you have
yeah,
the same issue?
I do, but like I said, I pack mine down so it's ridiculously heavy, and I don't understand how they even empty it. But no, they hand pick them up now.
No, can you use one at home?
Oh.
And take that
I guess.
form it out?
But if it's more than one person, it sounds like the next appropriate step, because it isn't just a clean this or that, would be to talk to the hauler around what are options for folks that may feel the need to, or have experienced the exceeding the 105 gallons a week. Then it sounds like that might be the
So
next.
maybe give us like a couple weeks to try and talk it over with the other supervisor and the hauler together and try and see if there is a solution before we assume that they won't.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you for coming.
We can put it on the agenda for another meeting. I don't know if we're next meeting's a month away, but
Yeah, it would be next month this time, and based off of, I imagine Luke will, he'll do some research and we can put it on and try.
he has your number too? No. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So Lisa prepares our agendas.
Yeah, so maybe if we can put that on the agenda.
If you put it on, I'd appreciate it. yeah.
Perfect.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items? All right, otherwise move to the minutes of previous meetings, the February 6th Board of Supervisors meeting.
Jason? I haven't read it yet. Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
For this, I will second.
All in, you do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What's the name?
All right, treasurer's report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I apologize that the treasurer's report is going to be a little longer tonight than is typical. I have a few changes to outline. Your packet includes both white and yellow sheets of paper. Those yellow pages represent reports that have changed since the last time we met. Here's why things have changed. On February 7th, DMB, the depository of record, transitioned to S&T Bank. Staff has been busy migrating to the new systems for online access and remote deposit. There's no need for the board to change the depository of record, because this change was anticipated at the annual organization meeting held on January 6th, and the minutes of that meeting reflect this change. The list of authorized signers for township accounts was amended prior to the transition, and the list of signers on the S&T accounts now reflects the current makeup of the Board of Supervisors and the current makeup of staff. The township has 3 new bank accounts on your balance sheet. That's the first page of your report. They are the escrow fund, which is used to track deposits made by applicants for land development or stormwater permits. The solid waste fee, which is used to track the fees paid by residents participating in the township's recycle and solid waste programs. And then finally, a fire service fund was created to track the proceeds of the fire services levy on the real estate tax. Also changed in your report are 2 new, well, there's one other new bank account that appears on your balance sheet, and those are the balances of the pension funds. The pension funds, we have 2 of them. There's a uniform and non-uniform. So we're getting closer to that first sheet reflecting what a real accountant, not me, would call a balance sheet. Towards the end of your packet, there's 2 new reports. One is a check detail for all funds. This is very similar to the much older report, which was called the General Fund Activity Report since the last meeting. Although this is for all the bank accounts. And I think this is significant because as we move closer to true fund accounting, the activity between meetings needs to reflect all the changes in multiple funds. Also, for each transaction, there's now a breakdown that shows the expense and/or revenue line items affected by that check. That appeared on the physical checks themselves in the middle of the 3 perforated sheets, but at no point appeared on any report before the board. And then lastly, there's a report at the end that is profit and loss by month. I think this one came straight from a suggestion from Chairman Ader, and I think it's fantastic. It shows the activity in the general fund broken down by expense and revenue line, and then further divided by month. There's a great many of the expenditures and revenues of township operations that are non-routine. Once a year, we get a payment from the liquid fuels fund. And this will be very useful to the Budget Committee in determining the time of year in which revenues or expenditures appear for cash flow forecasting purposes. So I welcome feedback from the full board on the new reports. It's my belief that the report, which is the check detail for all funds, can replace your older general fund activity report for the purposes of formulating a motion to pay the bills, which is usually what happens at the conclusion of the treasurer's report. And I'd also like to thank Chairman Nader for his feedback and suggestions in making improvements to our reporting forms.
Can I make one suggestion?
Absolutely.
Because I don't have Chairman Ader's eyes. The font. Can you expand that any?
You might be limited with the QuickBooks reporting on that.
Holy
I
cow.
could print on legal or 11 by 17.
Right, you could double it to 11 by 17.
Yeah.
I
More
will say
information means smaller font.
Right. No, I will say that I appreciate this. This is incredibly helpful. I think the profit and loss by month is absolutely key for the Budget Committee as we go to, as we get into the fall season, late summer, fall, for the budgeting, so we can look at that and know our highs and lows during the time period. And of course, the new check detail, where it really allocates the account numbers, and the descriptions are incredibly helpful to understand these costs. One thought, because the escrow fund, and again, I appreciate, last month we talked about separating the escrow, which is really important as far as those funds being segregated, because it's a starting balance. I know there's a separate reconciliation that identifies that. Can we get that breakdown of the current balance for that, since it was layered in as a starting balance? Isn't that something I think Naran might have to?
Yeah. So I asked Noran, who's our permits administrator, for a sum total of the positive balances of escrow accounts. So, and this is important because if someone was required to keep $3,000 in their stormwater escrow fund, but then they just got a big bill from the engineer and it depleted that, they need to recharge that, but this isn't, this is still cash accounting, it's not accrual. So we didn't show that as a negative balance. We didn't subtract that from what we needed to transfer to the escrow account. So yes, there was math that Noran did on the day that we cut the check to the escrow fund that showed a sum of all the positive balances in the mini escrow accounts the township maintains. You'd like to see that?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay. So traditionally, the treasurer's report is just reading the balances. Would you like me to do that?
Go to town.
All right, here we go. This is the standard treasurer's report. In the general fund, the balances are $407,461.76. The new fire services fund has a balance of $114.15. The new solid waste fund has a balance of $217.51. The traffic impact fee fund has a balance of $1,649,536.17. The open space referendum fund has a balance of $2,535,596.91. The open space fee in lieu of, or the subdivision and land development open space fund has a balance of $672,026.63. The township's capital projects fund has a balance of $603,795.63. The state liquid fuels fund has a balance of $171,455.78. The township's escrow fund, which is also new, has a balance of $46,579.94. And the uniform pension plan has a balance of $5,143,974.69, and the non-uniformed pension plan has a balance of $1,534,272.89. Thus concludes the treasurer's report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report and disbursements. Or take a moment to review them if you haven't yet. The last one here. Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of the bills.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Scott, Township Manager.
Thank you. Recently I attended a meeting on the Route 30 bypass improvements that are being proposed, probably starting in 2025, and I was approached by a representative of a traffic engineering firm who indicated to me that they've been contacted by McMahon Associates, who works for Pulte Homes. PennDOT wants the traffic signal at Bollinger Road and Horseshoe Pike to be energized sooner rather than later. The signals were installed in January. However, the road work has not been completed. There are real concerns that I have, and also our township engineer, Pannoni Incorporated, Nate Klein, and Mike Schneider from Pannoni. Mike is Pannoni's traffic engineer. They're reviewing the plans that have been submitted, and they'll, once they complete the review, they're going to contact me about discussing this. PennDOT, however, has the final say on how this aspect of the project will proceed. The concern is that while the width of the road has been expanded, the lanes are not line striped. And I think we're concerned that energizing those signals and starting the operation before that widening work and the line striping is done is an invitation to problems. Hopefully not significant problems, but we want those addressed before we will agree with it, because even though it's PennDOT's approval, ultimately the township is responsible for the operation of any of the traffic signals in the township. So more on that to follow. The second point, I'm pleased to announce that Saturday, June the 13th, has been confirmed for our annual document shredding and e-waste recycling event. This event is a partnership of 8 municipalities from the greater Coatesville area. And this is our 7th year of providing this. It started out as document shredding, and 2 years ago, we added the electronics recycling, computers and other electronic devices. The event will again be held at the Coatesville Area School District, Coatesville Area School Complex on Reeseville Road, across the street from Brandywine Hospital. Location worked extremely well last year because we were able to, from a logistics standpoint, separate the electronics recycling from the document recycling. Hours of the event will continue to be 9 a.m. until noon. We expect we'll have people, as we always do, who line up early. We have people that are there as early as 7:30 to make sure that they're first in line to get rid of their materials. And we'll also have stragglers at the end who come after noon when we're starting to break things down. Wiggins Shredding, as they did last year, will be providing 3 vehicles for the document shredding, and TBS Industries will be on hand for recycling various electronics, which include computers, televisions, PC monitors. Both of the contractors have agreed to arrive early, earlier than the published start time, so that we can deal with the crush from the early risers that come before we're supposed to start. And as in the past, there'll be charges by TBS Industries for recycling of tube-type televisions, some computer monitors, and anything other than flat-screen TVs. Please check our website. There'll be more information on what's acceptable and non-acceptable as far as the items to be collected for the e-waste portion of the event. And also, as we've done in the past, we try and limit to 4 boxes for the document shredding.
Scott, do they have a limit, and not a limit, but a quota, in other words, that they can only collect so many tons and they leave, or are they there from start to finish no matter what?
As far as who?
I'm just
Which-
envisioning, you're saying you're getting an onslaught in the beginning from people showing up to make sure that they get in there. If we could spread the word that, look, if you got there at 10 o'clock, they're still gonna take it no matter what.
The first year we did this with just the document shredding, we had, trying to remember, I think we only had 1 truck. And they had to send for another truck, and DNB First, who was the sponsor of that, no, they didn't have to pay for that. Wiggins ate that. So we got 2 trucks the second year, and we filled both. Last year, we started with 3 trucks, we filled 2 trucks, and the 3rd truck was approximately half full. And we had a line 8:15 in the morning, especially for the document shredding. The electronics waste wasn't that busy, but they'll be there from start to finish.
Okay. And that's what I just wanted to point out to people, if maybe we put that on the website, you don't have to be there first thing in the morning. It will be open until noon, and there's no
I
quota.
can tell you, since I've been involved with every one of the previous events, you have the same people that show up at There's one gentleman from Callan Township that always shows up at 7:30. He's actually helped us set up, just because he wants to be the first in line. And there are other people that I've recognized every year as coming before the announced start time. So I don't know, we can advertise that all we want.
Yep, okay.
You won't change some people's habits. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Manager, report?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to summarize the events that are going to occur between now and the next meeting of the Board of Supervisors. On February 25th, from 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock, the Red Cross will be hosting a blood drive for the first time in this event, which has been held many times at the Township buildings. It will be in this room. I'm excited that there's extra capacity, and I think this is the result of strong turnout at many of our events. Extra capacity aside, appointments are still strongly preferred. Please register at redcrossblood.org to get your donation time. The Bondsville Mill Committee will be featuring Speaker Douglas Talamy on March 11th at 7:30 p.m. The Bondsville Mill Committee is pleased to host this well-known native plant advocate and the author of Bringing Nature Home to speak in this room. Unfortunately, this is a free event, but it is sold out, and there's currently a waiting list for additional seating. It's promising to be a very popular event, and the fire marshal will only let us fit so many people in this room. So I'm pleased to announce the event, but I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. The Historical Commission Spring Speaker Series 1 of 3 will be on March 15th at 3:30 p.m. This is a lighthearted presentation. It has, from a reenactor's perspective, getting the question, aren't you hot in those clothes, when people see them in period dress. The presentation will explain the whys and wherefore of clothing worn during the 1700s. There is another free sharding event, this one hosted by the Chester County Solid Waste Authority at the Lanchester landfill, which will be on March 28th from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. If you're really concerned that there won't be capacity at ours in June, you could also try coming to this one. That's hosted by the Chester County Solid Waste Authority. Throw that in there in my capacity as recycle coordinator. You may have noted in your review of the financials earlier this evening that the Township engineer, Nate Klein, has recommended a payment in the amount of $78,571.65 for work already completed on the Community Park Trail extension and improvements. This amount will be paid from two separate funds, in part from the open space referendum and in part from the open space fee in lieu funds, consistent with the Open Space Committee's recommendation to this board at the time that the board authorized the purchase of the land for this project in fee. If you'll remember, there was a subdivision and purchase of land from the Permy Winters family. As a reminder, the board, or the township, received a Pico Green Region grant for this project in the amount of $10,000, which was deposited to the open space referendum account. The additional amount of $11,095.35 is being withheld until the contractor completes landscaping restoration this spring. So it's too early to be planting grass, but we are still withholding funds. So if you go out there and look and say it's not complete, we still are withholding funds for the final improvements. Lastly, this evening, a representative from BBD LLC, which is the township's appointed auditor, will be in the building the week of March 4th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Building Inspector?
For the month of January 2020, there were a total of 15 building permits issued, 1 zoning permit issued, 16 use and occupancy permits were issued in January. A total of 109 inspections were completed. Total fees collected for the month of January, $17,738. Respectfully submitted, Noran King.
And thank you. Roadmaster.
I do not have a report for this evening. Thank you.
I would like to say, however, even though Matt doesn't have a report, part of the installation of the connector trail between Ferndale Lane and Phase 2 of the community park Matt and his public works staff installed 550 feet of post and rail fence in one day and saved the township, how much was that, Matt? 4,000 something?
Yeah, probably a little less than that, but yeah, around $3,000.
But I couldn't believe when I heard that they installed that much fencing in one day.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Chief Cosi, please.
Good evening. This is the police report for January 2020. The first item I have on the agenda is a motion that I would respectfully request from the board. Officer Michael Triolo will have completed his one-year probationary status as of Tuesday, February 25th, and I am very happy to report that Mike has done a great job for the police department, and we did not have one concern or issue with him during the probationary period. I would respectfully request from the board to authorize a motion and vote to retain Officer Triolo on a full-time permanent status beginning February 25th, 2020.
Just for clarification, he's already working full-time hours? It's just about retaining him full-time?
Well, he's a part-time officer. No, he was on his one-year probationary period
Right,
as
right,
a full-time officer, so he's completed his probation.
Right, he's been working full-time hours.
Yes.
Right, so from a budget perspective, it's more about
Just
employment status,
transferring from
not.
probationary,
Right.
correct.
Have a motion? To retain as a full-time officer.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to retain Officer Triola, full-time, starting February 25th, 2020.
I'll second.
Any additional comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Carry on.
Next, the police department would like to welcome its two newest part-time officers to its ranks. And up on the screen is Mr. Alexander Reed. Alex was sworn in by District Judge Voloki on January 24th, 2020. Alex is a graduate of the Coatesville Area Senior High School. Alex graduated from both the Reading Police Academy, where he earned his Act 120 certification, and from Kutztown University, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in leisure and sports studies, and that was in 2015. Alex has served as a police officer for Lincoln University and Elizabethtown Borough. He is presently working part-time for Southern Chester County Regional Police, and Alex was assigned to our field training program a couple weeks ago, and he's working with FTO Sergeant Jim Ferraro. The second part-time candidate, I'd like to introduce Lindsay Taylor. Lindsay was sworn in by District Judge Voloki on February 13th. Lindsay is a graduate of Upper Darby High School. She graduated in 2017 from Temple University with a bachelor's degree in adult and organizational development. In 2018, Lindsay graduated from the Delaware County Community College Police Academy with her Act 120 certification. She most recently was working for South Coatesville Police Department and is presently working part-time at Kennett Square Borough Police Department. And Lindsay will begin the field training program the week of March 2nd. For the month of January, the police department had 2,157 recorded incidents. We completed 205 investigations. There were 5 criminal arrests, 0 summary arrests. We had 4 warrant arrests. We completed 1 juvenile petition. Officers investigated 16 traffic accidents. We issued 121 traffic citations, 73 traffic warnings, and officers logged 9,649 miles of patrol. In your report tonight, I also provided you totals of these categories for the year 2019. Recorded incidents, and this is based on 11 months because for 1 month, the county's CAD system was down and we weren't able to pull the data. But we recorded 26,868 incidents for 11 months. We had completed 2,175 investigations. The department had its highest totals ever. We had 65 criminal arrests, 17 summary arrests. We had 35 warrant arrests. We completed 2 juvenile petitions. We investigated 111 traffic accidents. Officers issued 1,816 traffic citations. We issued 767 traffic warnings, and the officers logged 111,954 miles of patrol. Training completed for the month. Lieutenant Jeff Yankanich and Officer Danny Miller completed their child car seat recertification. Officer Maureen Ray attended a identifying criminal vehicles and occupants course. Officer Juan Lemus attended a course called Interdiction Mastermind. Officer Miller, Smith, and Triola attended a vehicle equipment violations and inspection school, and Corporal Dan Orris attended a hostage negotiations conference. Included in your packet are this month's investigations, the officer activity reports, and all the 2019 yearly stats.
Thank you. Move it to the East Brandywine Fire Company.
Thank you. The month of January saw the East Brandywine Fire Company have its all-time high in emergency responses. 113 times the fire company was called out for service, be it fire or EMS. 17 fire calls in East Brandywine Township, 27 medical calls. We used 182 gallons of East Brandywine fuel. We had 11.8 personnel responding per call. We had a total of 3 training sessions with an average of 22 personnel in attendance. Over the course of the month, many of you attended our officer installation ceremony at Applecross Country Club, where the officers for 2020 were placed into service. We're in the midst of our annual hazmat training, which is every year. We just filmed a segment of a show called MyFitnessRx.com, actually from a township resident on Corner Catch Road who has the show on syndicated TV. Happy to announce that once again this month we had 4 new members be voted into membership, and it can't be lost that the volunteerism is still on an all-time low within the state, and we increasingly are able to take in new members at the fire company.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to old business. Luke.
Yeah, so before you in your packet is a draft job description for the position of Township Treasurer. This is the exact same draft job description that was before you at your February work session, but I did not give the board very much time, or any time at all, to review it. So it's back for your consideration on adoption. By way of background, we have had for many years a combined position of Secretary-Treasurer. When we had turnover in the position in October, I began to serve as the interim Secretary and Treasurer. When Lisa joined us in December, I gave up the interim Secretary, and I'm very enthusiastic about giving up the interim Treasurer job as well. So at this time, I'd ask the board permission to accept this job description as the position that you would like to direct staff to fill, or to recommend a candidate to this board, to be more precise.
Motion?
Yeah, you guys okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I read it. Looks good to me.
I'll make a motion to authorize township staff to use this job description as township treasurer to try to fill the position.
I'll second.
Any additional comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next up, the Downtown Area Recreation Consortium from last month. HUD?
Evening, everyone. I asked Luke where he was putting the end on the agenda. He said old business, and I objected, but it didn't seem to matter. Oh, thank you.
No movement, I see people approaching the bench.
Dark. She's the executive director, and she was the new hire last year. For the uninitiated, DARC is a 30-year-old consortium of all of the Downingtown municipal entities who are in the school district. And one reason it was formed was to cut costs among all of the members. We've discovered over the years that in addition to the ability to combine the programs, that with the school district as a partner, we're able to demonstrate and have our classes inside the facilities. So if DARC is no longer an entity and we do not get support from the municipalities, then what will happen is that the cost will go up for any of the programs we're now serving. They may be filled in a vacuum by the private sector, but the private sector will then control our municipal programs. Or the township takes on all the responsibilities. So I've given you the package of what types of programs we offer, everything from bus trips to kindergarten to swimming to soccer. And with 7 member municipalities plus the school district, we've been able to survive this way for 30 years. However, it's not without risk. We're subject to the weather sometimes for some of the outside programs. We're subject to changes in the administrative strata. We're subject to competition, obviously, from outside entities. So years ago, after we had a particularly bad winter, we came up with a subsidy amount, which we asked the townships to contribute every year to provide us with a buffer, a nest egg. And over the years, that number has gone up. So this year, the number was 10%. I think the amount requested was approximately $16,000, but I provided you with a 10-year municipal usage formula, which is based upon the number of members multiplied by the number of participants, and then you, in fact, take a pro rata a number of the total participants spread out among all the municipalities, and you arrive at a pro rata contribution. So for 2018, for example, East Brandywine was 13%, 13.3% of the total usage that occurred in 18. So our 2019 request was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000. I'm not sure what the request was last year exactly. Do you?
It was near the 15,000.
Do you have it, Luke? I'm sorry, I didn't bring that with me. I just brought the
I'm
history.
sorry, I've prepared the check for the board to consider, but I don't recall the amount.
All right,
I do believe last year's from the budget process was 15,
yes.
because
So-
there's a question about the amount on being
So the-
requested this year.
Just so the board is aware, that non-members pay a 15% premium for, a $15 premium for every class they take. All of the member municipalities and their participants, they pay $15 less. So that we do have strength in numbers when it comes to providing for the municipal discounts. But where we needed to have assistance, and this is where the subsidy comes in, when you have bad weather, when you have a change in staff, or when you have unexpected expenses, we're cut so close to the bone, and we are obviously a nonprofit, that we needed to have a subsidy created. So that's what this subsidy amount is. We're not asking you to support any of the programs per se, but as a group, as a whole, each member municipality is being asked to contribute only based upon the number of participants that they have. So we've held pretty consistently over the years at 550. That's our average. Obviously, Upper Euclid and Euclid, much larger populations, they're up around the thousands or so. So their contributions are much higher in the 20% range. So in trying to be fair and spread out the load, that's why there's a contribution asked for every year we've been in existence. Well, actually not every year, but probably the past 20 years. And I was on the board, well, actually I was on the board for 24 years now, so I've been there through most of this. But in my opinion, it's a good program. Without it, we're going to be without all the programs that are in the brochure. We'll be dependent upon other municipalities. Right now, West Whiteland's residents go to Westchester for most of their organized programs. They come to us too, we know them, and Callan does as well. But outside of the Y, there really are not any other entities close enough for our residents to go to. So we either pick them up personally or spread them out to the private sector. And I think that would be a shame. So I believe the entity is a viable entity. I believe over the years we've served the community well. I don't think $16,000 is a high ask in terms of the marketplace. but it would be to help us, coexist. And without us, I think, the school district has been a very good partner for us, but without Dark, I think you're going to be subject to the winds of the marketplace. You have anything to add, Nicole?
Kind of covered most of it.
I
To be
tried
honest
to,
with you. There's a little bit higher of a difference. He did say $15 if the residents actually, non-residents actually pay $20 fee. I'm not sure when that change exists, when it happened. But we have been undergoing a strategic plan where we're getting the input from all of the residents all over our district, our areas. And through that strategic plan, they've done a cost-effective study. And through the different municipalities in the state, DARC receives from municipal contributions about $1.29 to $2 and a penny per resident that participates. The average go for that per capita cost, typically in comparison into this area, Philadelphia Parks and Rec charges $69 a person. Pittsburgh charges $57, and Wilkes-Barre charges $26. So we're asking for very small. We actually raise $2.50 per person, be above what you give us at that $1 and $1.29 and $2.01. So what we're doing is we're really trying to give the best service to them for the least cost-effective price. And the little bit extra does help us hire the better staff and things like that. We do hire a lot of staff, a lot of local staff for the summertime. And we are competing with prices of Wegmans starting out at $12 an hour for a seasonal job. So in order to be able to continue to support our summer staff programs, having that little bit extra money will help us secure the better staff and the better programs in the area. Anything else?
I had a couple questions. First of all, there's no denying the program's fantastic. I guess my question is, the first one is financials. Where are you guys, how to state it earlier, nest egg. Where are you with the nest egg? Are you guys in positives? Are you negative? Are you guys a break even right now for your general fund, so to speak?
In the general fund, in December, we're usually in the negative, and then we rebound into the positive come January after we receive it. This year, something new since I've started here, we are starting fundraisers. We've never had any fundraisers in the past. They've always relied on using our line of credit that we have to get us through November and December. I can say this year alone, I didn't touch our line of credit until middle of December, so I was able to make some progress in the short period of time that I've been here, and I'm hoping to continue to grow that, and by also increasing our funds with some fundraisers that we are doing.
My second question would be, where are the other townships? Are the other townships, do you find, and you don't have to call any township out in particular, but are the other townships continuing to pay? Are there some that are faulting and therefore others have to pick up the slack?
No, all the townships are paying. We haven't had to call out anybody for funds.
Okay.
They've all paid the requested amounts
Yes.
in the 2020 request?
Yes,
Okay,
everybody's
and then
paid.
that's my third question.
All the money's in.
Being honest with you guys, when we got the invoice, it just said your fees due, and it was raised $1,000 from last year. I think that could have been handled a little bit better, and therefore I don't think anybody signed the check because everybody questioned, first of all, we have a budget we have to stick to, and all of a sudden we have a letter just saying, here's your new amount due, it's $1,000 higher, and I don't think that that's fair to the taxpayers.
Well, I know that we did send out, previous to the invoice, a couple months before, we sent out a bill explaining the different rates and their percentage. That was sent out a month or two ahead.
Okay. 'Cause
And
all
then
had
we-
was a check. That's why
Okay.
we questioned when we got it.
So maybe next year what I can do is I can attach what we sent out in October, but I think we sent that out in October. And then we sent the invoice out later in December.
Mr. Scribner, you should every year get a spreadsheet like this that says, here are the people that are participating, here is the usage, and here's your percentage, and based upon the percentage, here is the number. So if you're not getting that, we're not doing our job.
Yeah,
So-
well, I mean, I'm not saying it hasn't gone to staff, I
Yeah.
just personally never saw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And therefore, I
Well,
know.
and more importantly, it never made it to the budget committee, and that was the
Yep.
factors. Seeing the variance here in the request versus the
Yeah.
budgeted amount. It never flowed through, and that's really the main sort of flag that sort of raised the
We're
question.
very mindful. I mean, being on the board as such as you gentlemen are, I was, telling our people and our board, we have to get our numbers together by September. We have to get them to the townships by October 1st. You're going to be meeting in October and November, so you get your, so if we didn't do that, part of that was turmoil at our end. We hired a new staff person and we lost one to injury, so it was very chaotic towards the end of last year. But I appreciate your concerns, and that's why we're here.
Are you on a June 30th or calendar year for your fiscal?
We're on a
Or
calendar.
Calendar year.
Might want to get those a little earlier. You guys are already reviewing the budget for approval.
Right.
You want Labor Day? No, I'm seriously.
I mean, the reality is, the reality is the budget committee is really in full swing and first pass in August, and any sort of
That's fine.
forecasting on that.
Change.
Budget meeting, yeah.
Well, the figures.
We'll move it up.
Yeah.
I mean, because by August, we know how well our camps have done, the summer
Right.
camps. That's our big money raiser, so we should know by then. We'll
Can
put
you
it in.
also forward a copy of your most recent 990? I'd like just to see the general financials too.
Do you have a pen?
Yep. Is that it?
Thank you very much.
See you in a minute.
Thank you.
Wait, here, part of this is yours.
All right. Luke, new business?
Yeah, so in your packet is a application form for township boards, commissions, and committees from former Supervisor Fisher. We received this in, frankly, we received it in time for consideration for one of the two appointments he requested. At your February work session, Supervisor Fisher has indicated he'd like to stay involved in the township, and the two committees he's interested in serving on are the Open Space Committee and the Ordinance Task Force. The appointment to the Ordinance Task Force was considered at the February work session. At that time, the Open Space Committee appointment was tabled because there hadn't been an opportunity for the Open Space Committee to meet and consider the application prior to making a recommendation to the board. The Open Space Committee did meet in early February, and they are making a recommendation to appoint Jay Fisher as a member of the Open Space Committee. So at this time, I respectfully ask the board to consider the Open Spaces Committee's recommendation that Jay Fisher be appointed as a member of that committee.
Make a motion to appoint Jay Fisher to the Open Space Committee.
Do I have a second? I'll go ahead and second that. Any additional comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Thank you.
All right. Appointment of Linda McNeil to the Traffic Impact Committee.
Yes, Linda was present last, when was it, Linda? The February work session, that's what I thought. And heard us discussing the Traffic Impact Committee and the difficulty I've been having in getting the previous members to respond to me. So she had contacted me, and I asked her simply to fill out another volunteer application form. She's interested in serving on the Traffic Impact Committee, and I would like to ask the board to approve her request to be part of that committee. I have a couple other people that I've talked to. I'm waiting for Andy Heinrich, our traffic consultant, to get back from vacation, which he's due back today, or was due back today, so that I can get dates from Andy when he's available and circulate that to the folks who still are interested, plus Ms. McNeil, to add her to the group, the committee, I should say.
Since I'm the supervisor liaison for that committee, I will make a motion for the appointment of Linda McNeil to the Traffic Impact Committee.
I'll second.
Any additional comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Linda. All right, there are no subdivision and zoning applications, so we'll move into ordinance and resolutions.
Good evening again. Last year, we were successful in securing both ends of a grant from the county and the state. Our budget last year was $467,000, and I'm pleased to report that we got what we needed, along with your support of the match. So we're working right now on administering those grants. We had a meeting today, and hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll be pulling up concrete and putting in amended soils is what they call them. So we're very lucky to have such a hardworking, talented group. There are not many in the state that dedicate themselves like our citizens have and our experts. So the state is watching us very closely. They want us to succeed. They want us to be a model for other townships looking to repurpose some of their older facilities. Tonight, you have before you a resolution that allows us to move forward with phases 3 and 4. Phase 3 being the installation of the amended soils and plants, and phase 4 being the creation of a parking lot. I'll talk about parking in a minute, but phase 4 would be the creation of a 60-space parking area towards the end of the mill property, southern end. Do you have a sketch in front of you at all? I can't really point to it, but in any event, this year's grant ask, there it is there, thank you, Luke. So right where those parking spaces are towards the southeastern corner is what we're talking about, towards the lower bridge. That would be phase 4 work. Phase 3 work is simply putting the plants into the the area that receives the soils. That will not occur until 2021, but obviously we need to apply for it in 2020. This year's situation is a lot different in terms of the money we need. It's far less than last year. It's only $205,000. The county has informed us that they do not require a match from us this year. The state does not require a match, so we're going for 50% from the county and 50% from the state. I've been advised by the grant administrator, Judy Thomas, that the only thing they need to know is that, a fail-safe plan. What if this happens? What if that happens? And the fail-safe they want to hear is that we have a backup plan, which is you gentlemen, and we'd have to come in and ask for some money in an emergency situation. Could we get it? Obviously, we would come back at that point with a plan of action and a potential ask for monies, but there's no guaranteed monies, there's no required monies, there's no match like last year. So the resolution you have before you should be for no money. It's simply asking for your support for the development of phases 3 and 4 of the Bondsville Mill Park improvement plan. We don't really have an official name for it. That's what we're using. It seems to work. But we're hoping that the board sees fit to sign it, and then we will be back to you probably later this year with a progress report on the bidding process. Our engineer, Nate Klein, is working with us and the state to come up with bid plans to get work started on the concrete pad and the installation of the soils. So once we get those bid specs together, we'll advertise them and hopefully get some bids in that we can get the project moving and people can actually see something going on down there in the concreted area. So that's an update on where we are. Good news is no match, and we're just hoping for your continued support.
All right, so to summarize, So looking for support on this resolution. The estimated budget for phases 3 and 4 is 205,000?
That's correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Most of that for the parking lot. We're using as much of this concrete that comes out of the pad, and we're crushing it and using it as the base for the parking lot, which the state loves that as well, so that's another reason why they like our project. So we're keeping the costs down that way. And we already have the bridge in place, but we're obviously have to do some handicap spaces and striping and all that.
Any additional questions, thoughts?
Hey, Kristen,
Yeah.
have you read the resolution? You're okay with it?
Yeah, I mean, we're just applying for the grant at this point in time. We're not committing, I'm not totally clear on, what our match obligation would be and exactly where those funds come from, but at this point, all we're doing is authorizing him to file the application.
Yep.
Well, to be clear, at this point, there's no match requirement.
Oh,
So that's zero, so.
it is a zero. Zero match this year.
And for phases 1 and 2, the two grants had a combined local match of 10%. So phases 1 and 2 was at 10%, and phases 3 and 4 is 0%.
So can I ask a question? I'm confused. So you're saying that even if you are awarded it, which we hope to be, they're not going to come back and ask you for a match?
That's correct.
Okay.
I asked her twice, Kristen. This is HUD, by the way.
Okay, yeah, I'm not questioning that.
Maybe 3 times.
These are great grants. I know
Yeah.
that there are a lot of municipalities try to go after them, so it's good to try to get it in.
I will say this in the interest of a complete fiscal note on the project. So phases 1 and 2 have been awarded, and we actually had a conversation with the state this afternoon, and 15% of the soft costs, which you can read as Nate's work in preparing bid specs and the like, is reimbursable. So no more than 15% of the total project can be those soft costs. However, in the work that's necessary to prepare the applications for phases 3 and 4, we are using staff time and we are using our engineers' time. I say that in the interest of just full disclosure to the board. That said, we're looking at achieving the goals at Bondsville Mills and developing that into a park with a 0% match. That sounds good to me.
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion for a resolution, to approve Resolution 5 of 2020, authorizing East Brandywine Township to file the application for the Chester County Municipal Grant Program Assistance, and authorizing HUD Volts to be the person in charge for the files and for the open space in the county.
I will second.
Any additional comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But before I leave, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to double dip if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right, we were before. This is our interim parking plan that we came up with in May, and I've tweaked it a little bit. Board members saw this and commented that they didn't want to see any parking along the area next to the roadway there. You're looking at it from Allison Street. But in any event, one of the things that we realize is going to happen as parks improve, and we have programs this spring that are coming in, is that we're going to have a parking situation with the way it's currently constructed, and that way is everybody parks where they want to park. And you can see the flagpole is off to the upper right-hand corner, and we have the houses across the street. So this is an interim plan. Our hope here is to create a one-way in, one-way out. When we spoke last time, I'm sorry, Mark, let me give you one.
That's all right.
I have it actually.
This is a short-term parking, because you have the,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, we've had a couple of events, and we've been lucky that they've occurred when not a lot of people from across the street park there. We want to be good neighbors and all. But this is going to have to do until the parking lot goes in sometime in 2021. And I think overall, it probably is the way it should go and remain even after we're done with the new parking lot. It allows for ingress and egress of a larger vehicle, like a bus, short wheelbase bus, to drop people off. We hope to have educational programs there for schools. They were already interested in it. Longwood Gardens is interested in it, winter tour. But we're hoping to have one way in, one way out, and have slanted parking. We think that's the safest. We already have people starting to park, thankfully, up more closer to the flagpole and the tree there in the upper portion of the photograph. But we need the township's help in two ways. One, we want to get a letter out to the residents and the owners of those properties across the street. Mr. Ader, you may not know, but the township is allowing these folks to park on township property. They're used to it. The landlords know that it is, not their property, and they would welcome a letter from the township saying, okay, folks, here's what we have to do for the next year or two, or however long the township sees fit to tell them. But we're going to get organized over there. We're going to put bumper stops in, either concrete ones or railroad ties or whatever the township chooses. And we're going to angle the parking so that people can get in and out of there. And surprisingly, the best sight distance is down at the exit where we have it marked there. And looking left and right, you can see perfectly each way. So in terms of safety, I think this is the best plan. It does provide for one handicap spot. You really can't see it. The truck nearest the pathway across the creek there has an H on it. But it'll allow a much cleaner ingress and egress for us, and it'll keep things organized. We've had some situations where people park and clog up what's marked as the entrance now. We've tried to stuff too many cars in there in the past. This will at least allow us to access the property without having people get upset. So if we give the owners and tenants notice what we're doing, and then we can work with Matt and Mark Cozy to come up with the proper alignment, then that's what I think we should be heading in that direction. I'm happy to draft the letter. I had sent one to the board a while ago, just some of my thoughts, but I think we're getting to the point now where we should probably act on this, at least giving them notice.
Only thing that sticks out to me is the thought that if construction's going on and personal vehicles are parking on township-owned property for their residents across the street, that maybe they need to sign an identification for the township so that we're not liable if they were to get their car, and I think that they either have to sign it or they have to find alternate parking, because you're gonna have equipment in there, you're gonna have dump trucks in there, and, trying to get park visitors in there at the same time, I think it's gonna be a little bit of a problem.
Always a good idea to have an indemnification or hold harmless. I can address one issue, though, and thankfully, most of the construction equipment will have to go across that lower bridge there, the cursor. That's the only one rated for heavy equipment anyway, so everything that's going to go on, luckily, will not go across the bridge that everybody sees at this point. However, risk management, we've been allowing them to park there for years. Somebody could get hurt. Somebody could cross the street, who knows? We get sued for that. So it's something I think for your solicitor to consider. It could certainly be part of the package. We know several of the landlords. I know one, and Mr. Buxala's cousin owns a couple of the properties, so we're well aware what's happening, and they are too. So they're willing to work with us, obviously, but now is probably the time to do something.
Wouldn't we need PennDOT's approval to alter the entrances and?
We're not going to alter anything. I forget who mentioned it last time, but yeah, don't do anything in terms of putting signs up or telling people to cross here or there, because that's when you get into the PennDOT, will come in and say, all right, what are you doing? But as long as we're not putting up a sign or changing the ingress and egress, putting it one way in and out, I don't think changes anything. I'll check on that. That's a good question, Jason.
You could even possibly spray paint temporary lines every month.
Yeah, but I know Matt wouldn't be wild about that.
No, I'm saying on the gravel, the current gravel.
Oh, you mean for where people park?
Yeah.
Something to consider. I think in our budget, we have money set aside for bumper stops of some sort.
No, I'm saying if the PennDOT gave you a hard time about making
Oh.
it permanent, you just do the spray paint
I got you.
temporarily, month to
All right,
month.
thank you. Now I get it.
So those homes and those parking spots, they all are in agreement? Because I'd probably want to see that they understand, you know.
It's not their property.
Yeah, they don't really have a
That's what they're
choice.
saying. They're
Yeah,
gonna,
but they've been parking there for how long?
yeah, that's
Probably
what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
21 years.
to have the
So, Hud, are
indemnification.
you saying you're gonna require them to remove their vehicles from that area, or you're
No, we're just gonna,
notify them, this is what you're doing?
yeah.
Okay, if you have an event there,
Yeah.
what do you typically do? Let them know and they have to remove their cars?
That's up to the board. I mean, I think there's 8 units down there.
Okay.
2 of them have parking on either side, 6 do not. So if we allow 6 to park there, one, you know, we'll still have 15 or 16 spaces left. But I think if we notify them that there's gonna be an event and give them the time, ask them to move it at that point, or at least be aware that there's gonna be a lot of traffic. We'll just have to play it by ear. Luckily,
The busing from here last year worked great.
it did work.
If it became a huge problem for an event, at least we have that option.
Yeah, we don't have that yet, but we're talking about 30 or 40, you know, participants, and we'll try and get them to carpool, but, you know, last time, all the staff volunteers parked down at the lower end, or not all of them, but some of us parked down by the pad at the other bridge. But unless you have an SUV, it's not really a viable option. But we're, maybe just getting a letter, can I get something together for you gentlemen to
Yeah,
look
I
at?
think if we got something that, yeah.
I'll just make suggestions, and then the board can take a look at it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, brings us to public, any additional public comment from the agenda items today? All right, seeing none, as far as notices, the Board of Supervisors held an executive session on February 7th at 7:30 a.m. to discuss litigation matters, and we'll be following up this meeting with an executive session for the purpose of considering the purchase of lease or real property, as well as personnel matters. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.